Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes video, and this video features another new release, and this is something that I've wanted to do for a little while now. I originally, quite a couple years back, had offered a graveyard, and the thing I didn't really like about it was the fact that there's no real way to play inside of it unless you're playing a skirmish game. In which case, then you just have to make sure that the gravestones are separated enough for miniatures to access them, based on their base size. But as I'm a fantasy player, Warhammer Fantasy, I wanted something that could be accessible by troops, and so after a little while, I've developed a new basing system that works for a variety of different kinds of pieces, and it finally gave me the chance to revisit graves and come up with something so I could make a thematic table. And so one of the tables that I made for my gaming group recently was a sort of graveyard themed table, and I had the mausoleum on it and a few graveyards and a couple rocky hills and things like that. So what I'd like to do today is give you a chance to see the graveyards and give you the first chance to see the new basing system that I've come up with, and go from there. So here you can see the smallest of the graveyards that I developed, and this is the new basing system that I've made. Now, in the past, I've done I did this for a desert piece, and what I did is I used a hole saw and I cut out circles and then replaced inside of it with the disc that was cut out. But the problem is that there's I think it's called the kerf of the blade, right? The thickness of the blade leaves a gap that's fairly obvious when you do that, and it was something that I never really liked and hadn't really revisited since then. But it occurred to me that if I cut the holes and then created a disc designed to fit that hole a little bit tighter, it would clean up those lines quite a bit and give me a much better end result. So that's what I've done here, is cut these bases, and these bases are cast in urethane plastic, and shaped the hole discs, the discs to fit the hole, I should say, quite a bit tighter, and about as tight as I can make them without it being a problem to get them in and out. So it's a really, I think, a great way to expand the ability to incorporate things into a base and retain the playability for, large blocks of troops that may be on a movement tray. Now, the graves that I've used are Renedra, I believe is the name of them, and they're really nice. These are injection molded plastic graves, and they have a pretty nice variety of them. And what I did is I went in and gave them some weathering. I actually was looking at a graveyard recently and thinking about it before I undertook this, and I think I've done a fairly good job. I don't always compliment myself, but I think I did a fairly good job capturing the types of weathering that you see on old stones, and so I think it gives these pieces a lot of life. Then what I've done is I've added in a dead tree, and I was really unsure of how to paint the tree. This armature is, oh gosh, I want to say it's from TerranScapes. They're barren trees. It's a fantastic armature, and it seemed like a shame to cover it up with a bunch of foliage because it just has, wonderful branching. But I wanted something that would be relatively easy to do for a color scheme, because getting inside of all these branches to dry brush them and whatnot is going to be very difficult. So I went online and I found an image of a dead tree. Well, I looked at several, but I found an image of a dead tree that kind of captured this overall look, and I'll insert that picture here. And so that was the general look I was going for, and it created a color scheme that I could do on the tree that captured sort of that dead feel without being excessively arduous to paint and finish. So there's the small stand. Oh, I guess just to give you a sense, dimensions on that, roughly say about 5 ballpark by about 6 inches, that is. And here you see the medium stand. Whoops, I should pan back a little bit here. Give me a second. Let's do this. There we go. It captures a little bit more of it. And so the medium stand incorporates 4 bases. Oh, that one's sticking up a little bit. That one's sticking up a little bit. There we go. But in any case, same premise. So it's nice, and in fact, these bases are, of course, interchangeable with the other, smaller gravestones. So, really you have some flexibility about moving things around if you need to or want to. And again, showing a little bit of the diversity of the stones that are included in the Renedra set. Kind of a nice set. That's pretty decent, I think. Oh, there we go. And so that's the medium base. And what's nice is, with enough, freedom to be able to be removed easily, it's not like you're going to break off graves trying to pull that out. And let's take a look at the large one before I make another comment on these bases. And we'll pan back a little bit more here. Well, we'll pan back a little bit more. There we go. So this is the large grave base, and it's fairly large. I mean, it's not incredibly big, but I mean, it's, say, 10 or 11 inches by roughly 8. So it has a fairly decent footprint with a variety of sizes of discs, and in this instance, I decided to put in two trees to give it a little bit more depth. And I thought I would give you a little close-up of the graveyard so you can get a sense of what it looks like from a little bit more of a model's eye view. But again, a nice diversity of stones. A few of them, modified so they're leaning, and trying to also space them in a way that is somewhat natural. I wanted it to feel dense. So that it kind of feels like a graveyard, but also make it somewhat plausible that there's, space for an actual grave in between the stones. It's a bit of a compromise, but I think I'd rather have one too many stones in it, and sacrifice a little realism, than to, take out quite a few stones, make the base feel a little more empty to sort of emulate the actual spacing that graves would have. Give you a little sense of a perspective there, and how they sort of line up, but not really. They're not super regularly placed. But that gives you a nice little close-up of the graveyard from, more of a gaming perspective. And the last comment that I have on these new bases, which you'll see in a couple upcoming videos as well, is that I left the bottom open on them. And my thinking is that when I remove something from a base, I'm often, dismayed to see that big black circle on the table where the original piece was, placed within the stand. So what I've done is I've left them open so that when you pull them out, you actually see the table surface below it. And I think that maintains a little bit more of a natural feel during the game. The sacrifice with that is that depending on how tight the discs are in the base, when you go to pick up the entire base, sometimes the pieces fall through. So it makes transporting it a little bit more challenging. You really should just pick out all of the discs, set them aside, move your base, and then put them all back, which is relatively quick because they just go in and out really easily. But it is, a little bit different than how traditionally a stand like the Games Workshop trees or whatever really interact. So, I want to mention that if you would want it to be based, it would be very easy to add a styrene sheet to the bottom, trim it to fit, glue it in place, and then there would be a foundation to be able to pick them all up. So rather than lock myself into that when I originally made the mold, I decided to keep them open, as I can always add a styrene sheet to the bottom of them rather than try to cut out those holes once they were cast. So it's sort of multiple options there on how those could be finished. Anyway, hope you enjoyed taking a look at the graveyard. Of course, there'll be pictures in the new release in the barriers and obstacle page, and this will be on the new release page as well at the TerranScapes website, TerranScapes.com, in case you're not reading the description down below. You know, feel free to leave questions and comments. As always, I read every comment. I don't respond to everyone now. I try to respond to as many as I can. So please don't feel like I'm not reading your comments if I don't directly respond to it. I check them all out, and I really appreciate them. Anyway, keep your eye on the channel. More videos to come, more new releases, and I hope you'll join me for those then.